Hi. I think some of you have already worked with some of you or met some of you before, and some others are new. To those who are seeing me first time, I'm Muthu. I work for SAP. I'm a product manager there. I'm from 2017 A batch, if you know already. We just, I think, finished a couple of months back. We have our convocation also next month. So today is your last class also, right? If I'm not wrong. So
almost done. We have a couple of classes.
Cool. Okay. Okay. And it was just before data science class, if I'm okay. So the yeah, it will be definitely. So Subhajit told me, actually, I don't know if you know him. He's from the Markham, right? So he said the format for Industry Connect is being changed, and from this time we are actually trying to do a round table, is what I got to know. So he was saying that we are expecting to have more of casual conversation with the people from the industry. So we are changing it instead of a classroom into this thing. So anyway, I haven't carried any presentations with me, not on the last class. Definitely, you will also not be on the mood for it. So I was actually expecting to have a roundtable kind of a setting. I just got to know from Pawan that this is still not rolled out, or so it's going to be the same kind of format. We can still do the kind of a casual conversation around. So the idea was. He was asking for kind of to talk around one topic primarily. Then I said, I can talk about design thinking because I'm practicing design thinking in the corporate and startup area now for 8+ years or so. Varied size of products, different sizes of projects, from the full cycle of conceptualization to launch of products with the full DT approaches. Earlier, when it was introduced back in India, when IT companies just started adopting in 2008-9 times, just started in that time. So that could be kind of a primary topic around, but I would not keep it kind of any structure. We can, of course, break down, add anything that you would like to know. We can go on to those area also. How many of you are from product development companies? Okay, a fair bit of you are already from product area, right? So that's good. Okay. Okay, so that's kind of what I was thinking. Anything that you would also like to have a conversation around?
Maybe actually when you say product management role, what kind of exactly day-to-day work for you?
Okay.
Product just to give a get an idea.
Yeah.
Product management interview. Just mention about the interviews which they asked in from Google. They should be okay.
Cool. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So in SAP, it's a little different. Any of you from SAP ecosystem background? No, right? So okay.
I work with SuccessFactors.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. But it had a completely different culture, which we have now made them also SAP. Right? So SAP. I'll just tell you a kind of a little bit of background. So also there are a few things that we can also learn from what has happened over there as a company, right? So it also actually started as a startup, you would say, like 4 ex-employees of IBM seeing a problem around the finance systems and the management of the enterprise resources, and how we can structurize these things, and if there is a DB, and if we put all the information together in a structured format, would it be a better way to manage organizations of a bigger size? This is how they started. Of course, they started together within the company, within their customer company itself, sitting with the founders, sitting with the customer company, starting to code, and then trying to scale it to other customers. A typical way of how a startup would start and evolve, right? So that's how it also started. So back at then, there was a lot of pull for these kind of structured systems to store and manage the data around the company. So obviously they started becoming bigger, and they also introduced what they called as the best practices for a different industry. So that's how SAP made its own needs in that area. So instead of only designing a generic offering for all the companies, it also started to design, okay, ERP, then the specific modules for each area. How can the human resources part can look like? How can supply chain can look like? And in each of these domain, for example, how material management would be, project management would be, all of these area, they also started defining best practices. So if you are a company in this area, if you follow these best practices, if you first define the material, then define the customer, then do this, when you put them in kind of a structure, it gave a lot of companies a better clarity. So the company started adopting to the best practices provided by SAP, and that's how eventually they started becoming bigger, right? So then slowly SAP also had its time of fame and then started coming down. So 2008-9 times it was already kind of coming down. We had our issues with the internal board, CEO, acceptance was very low. The company was kind of in a lower trajectory. There was talks that Microsoft could potentially take over SAP, and then there was a moment that the company strategy has to be fully redefined. Right? So that's where they came up with what's called as a 5-market strategy to address different markets, and the main aspect is that's when also design thinking was introduced. So there is this famous talk from our CEO back at 2008-9 times, where he talked about the push to pull strategy of selling products, right? So that's when he recalled, for example, we as a company, when we started, we actually wanted to, build the product for the customers, but over the period of time, in the 40 years of our existence, we developed a long gap between the actual user of the product and where the product is being developed. So there are a lot of middle layers. In the customer company side, we were traditionally interacting only with the IT manager, IT admin, CIO, who is defining the strategy, and then get it and go into the room, develop the product, get it with the developers, blueprint to actually turning into the requirements and starting to develop, right? So that's what started to become at a stage more of a push into the market rather than pull, because there were other competitors also who started venturing into this space, who had a little bit of customized offerings also for customers, and it was a lot of there was this kind of a notion with the customers that SAP is kind of arrogant, they are not listening to the customers. They are defining the best practice and they are saying us to adapt, and they are not listening to what exactly is required from us. And also, if any of your company is also using SAP product, then you would know how our UIs look like. So the user interface of SAP. Yeah. So how not a UI should be, you can actually see one of our UIs.
And product managers to define.
Yes. Right. So this is how the state was in 2009-10 times, right? So that's when the whole design strategy was defined. So we got a chief design officer, and we eventually got the whole design thinking strategy also around. And then the famous Vishal Sikka, because of Infosys stint of him, right? So that's when the whole thing wanted to be changed, that how do we actually listen to customers, how do we redefine the whole UI paradigm. So now what we call as, if you just Google for SAP Fiori, you will see a new SAP, right from the icon to styling to how the user interfaces look, to any complex business process, how it should be defined in only 3 screens to a maximum, and then each screen not having many of the interactions, like how Microsoft and Google also have their pages with all the icons and the style defined. Now SAP also, you would see a unique design which is also modernized and all that. Right? So that's when the moment the whole change around it was started. And Vishal Sikka added to the push. So he said that we have to completely turn around what we are doing, and let's start to do more of design thinking projects. So he established his own department, what is called as the DNA, Design New Applications. which is to actually to research and stay very close to the market. Each team of 4-5 people actually defining the whole product and getting it to their first customer, first enterprise customer. It's still a B2B product, but defined by a very, very small team compared to what we are usually used to do. Like a 100-member team typically starting with for one product, developing over 18 months development time. That's what we used to have. 18 months we do one release, and then the next 18th month you will get the second release. That's how our development cycles used to be. So it was broken down completely, every month release cycle and all that was changed. So with that, the another thing that was changed was that it is one department which is having a new structure. And for the fairly established ones, right, which is already there, also had to be turned around. So that's where, you know, the whole structure around DT started taking place. So how a team which is already established, there is 5 teams of 10 or 6 teams of 10 concept is known to you, right? Is that how? No? Okay. So it's like the pizza team, as they say, right? So like that, SAP call it the team of 10. So team of 10 is a team which is self-sufficient. It has a PO, it has a QA, it has a architect. Now the new additions are also that you have a DevOps person and you have a data science person, and then the remaining 6 of them are developers. So this team now, I mean, almost every team is only looking at cloud development, and then most probably, I mean, almost 60-70% of the teams are only looking at machine learning and blockchain now. So there's also a blockchain or a machine learning expert into that, and the remaining developers around it. So earlier it used to be completely ABAP developers. ABAP is our own programming language. Now it's all replaced by Java stack, Java, JavaScript, and anything that you see in any other company. That's what we are also doing. HANA. Yeah. Yes. So basically, that's also one another change came after that. After this change, after Visalsika, after design thinking was introduced, when we were looking for new product and all that, right? Yes. Yeah. He was CTO, CPO, CTO, and he wanted to become CEO. There was some confusions around, right? So, yeah. Yes. Yeah. So for each of the product we wanted to define the with DT, the project started to run. So it's like, for example, the setup is used to be like, we defined full new spaces for design thinking challenges. The flows with, you know, all free roaming spaces and all the creative elements that you can have around you to inspire you, and you can start to define the products. So what used to happen is that one team of 10 comes into the room, and then you get to use this room for 1 month allotted time, and within this 1 month you take your next release, what is going to be your next release, and in this next release what are the features that you have taken. Now you go back one step, because these features are always, we have a big roadmap going for at least to 10 years, between 3 to 10 years. So now break it down, what is your immediate next release, go back why you have gotten, what is the problem, then speak to the users, then again see whether it is really required, actually do a prototype within this 1 month itself, go to customers, and we actually revised the legal policies also to show even make the prototypes even run in the customer place, which was not the case before. So actually see how they are using, and then get the feedback. Within this 1 month, you defined from the level of understanding to the actual user interaction to synthesizing to actually building the ideas and the prototypes, validating with the customer. Then after the 1 month, you go into the regular agile cycle where you start to go into your Scrum setup, break down the requirements and start to develop the product. So just this 1 month of full DT was introduced before. And then the elements of design thinking, the mindset that you need to have will remain across your development when you are still developing in your agile product mode. So when you are still developing, whenever you have, for example, if you have still another customer interaction required, you will still remember the concepts from design thinking of how you should speak to your users, how to have empathy towards the problems that they are facing. All those elements of DT will still apply when you are developing the product in the agile mode also. But then this intensive 1 month of DT before you go on for any next release of the product is something that we introduced at that time. So that was one big change, right? And the other thing around the HANA was also that it came also from research. So basically the thing is that if as you had been using SAP, you know that most of the SAP installations are actually running on Oracle database. And Oracle is our competitor, right? So eventually you also have to think about, you know, what are we doing against the competitor and how are we staying with our market, right? So one of the downward extension strategy was that how to take the market also on the lower stack as well. We are on the application stack, how to take the market also on the DB stack. So that's when instead of making a very traditional DB to compete again, the new form of DB, what they call as the in-memory DB. So the whole thing is in the RAM rather than actually there is no physical storage happening, complete stuff is in the RAM. And then instead of row-based storage, it's a column-based storage. And then other patented techniques of how you can extract the data faster from a database. And that was another important thing is that traditionally there are two kinds of these databases. Ones that are well suited for the transaction based ones and the ones that is well suited for the analytics, OLTP and OLAP, right? So this was also the first time both was merged. Same DB which is also fast, but you are able to also access and write to the same database, which means it eliminates the need of having two different databases where you are doing transactions. Let's say you are creating customers and sales orders in one system. Traditionally, all enterprise companies are replicating the whole thing, what you are producing here, either every overnight or over a month to another system where the reports are produced, where the financial transactions are happening. Now, if you are able to merge, if one DB can have both, then you suddenly have the power of able to running the report in the same system, which means your financial transactions are able to give you the result of immediate. So you are going for a board meeting, you are able to immediately see what is the status of things like that, right? So that was one of the things that came in. Yeah, so that was pretty much about it. And after that, Vishal Sikka also moved on to Infosys, right? And you might know that Infosys took this thing of, he set up this initial vision, at least 1.5 lakh employees should be up and running on design thinking within the next 6 months. And then they started training everyone crazily. Everyone went through design thinking. Some of them were flew to different places, US and Germany, and some of them were trained locally here, and they had a massive DT movement happening. In the midst of it, there were other confusions, and he was eventually had to leave from Infosys also, right? So
then what happened to the movement of design thinking?
There also, it started falling.
A story has to be having.
Exactly.
No one talks about design.
Exactly.
No, please.
Right. So.
No.
So the problem, the biggest problem that I see is such kind of technology, such kind of methodologies cannot be done immediately in mass. So the same thing happened in our company also, is that we tried to scale very big, and then what started to happen is that you suddenly need to have like 1000 DT coaches. How do you produce so many coaches, thousands of number of coaches immediately to make every product have a DT coach available? They do an intensive 1 month exercise. How is it possible? It wasn't possible. So what happened? What used to be, when we got trained as the initial batch, what used to be a 1 month long training, seeing the universities, how they are doing, all the case studies and all that, was eventually reduced to 5-day training, 3-day training and 1-day training. So it became like our master class. One day you attend, and at the end of the day you get a certified, internationally certified product manager, right? Like that, certified design thinking coach on 1 day. Now how is that possible, right? So when they go back to their actual work and they start to do it with their teams, that's when they start to face the heat. They don't know, they have not seen all the case studies, and they don't know where exactly what to do, why we have to do ideation phase, for example. And the whole power of DT lies in the synthesis phase. I assume all of you have gone through one DT phase, right? So the huge power lies in the synthesis phase. From traditionally, if you see any product development, everything starts from the requirement. Every time you are doing POC, POCs are not new for any technology company anywhere in the world. You are every other day doing some of the other POC. That is what is nothing but your ideation and your prototyping. So what is really different is the primary difference is your synthesis. As every phase also has some unique things that we could also.
This is which phase you are talking about, prototyping?
No. So you have understood the problem. You have spoken to customers. Now you have a set of insights with you, right? Not even the insights at this point in time. You have a lot of interactions captured, information with you. Now from this information to insight is your synthesis phase. So the thing is that you are speaking to someone, you are not allowed to already interpret that, okay, as per what I spoke to you, I conclude that a executive MBA program is the best one and I will scale it, right? So not already that, but I'm listening to his point of view, and then the second point of view, third point of view, different personas. Each of these persona, what they have told, is there any connections within persona, inter-persona happening? And then there are multiple frameworks also that we use in synthesis. There are geographical frameworks to mental connection frameworks to mind map frameworks to weightage frameworks. There are multiple ways of how you can analyze the information that you have got by speaking around to multiple people, by looking at analogous situations, by looking at how it was traditionally solved, historically solved, and all those kind of, what is thought leaders saying. All these informations, how you translate them into insights is your synthesis phase. So that's when the problem is redefined. So you started with a problem, you spoke to customers. Traditionally, after speaking to customers, you build requirements and start to build. Now what you are doing, you started with a problem, you spoke to customers, you redefine the problem, and then do the ideation, validate, and then build the product. So that's the primary difference. Now that's where, for example, a typical synthesis phase for a product, when we are going onto a room with this team of 10 typically, it used to take for us like at least like 6 to 10 days at times. And you have informations running around the full room. Everywhere post-its you will get lost. You are not able to even connect the insights. Everything is running overhead at a point in time, right? So that's where if someone is not really experienced and gone through these phases, they will not be able to manage these things, and the team will easily get lost. They will start to say, no, this I have already done. What significant difference it is making. If they don't believe in the methodology itself, then you are obviously not going to get the result out of the phase itself, right? So what started happening is that there started to become, like in 2013 or so, we started to have some not even some, actually lot of failure stories happening around design thinking. A product trying to do something with the design thinking, they are going into the room, they are spending time, and they are coming back and giving negative feedback. We tried and we have not got anything exponential, anything not thought before, not wow of customers. It's a waste of time for us, right? So, and eventually it is purely because of the how you scale. It's like the speed at which we scaled was very high. So it started kind of coming down. But now we have a kind of a stable approach. It's like, not every project is forced to have design thinking. Earlier, it's like every product has to be following design thinking. Now it's also that you look at which ones require DT, which ones do not require DT, and product managers are empowered to take a call on whether you want to follow or don't want to follow, whether you want to go with your traditional approach also. So if you want to go, and you can still follow the methodology and build.
It all depends on what problem you are trying to which requires DT and which do not.
Yeah, so basically the problem space should be relatively underdefined, and you have some options to explore around the problem, because what is happening is many times you will end up even making or thinking the problem even in a bigger space, or you will realize that the problem isn't something else, and you are able to go ahead, right? And in some places this is already committed. There is already a very defined scope, and you cannot do something around it. There are teams within SAP also which is also doing service, which is also doing maintenance, which is also doing ticket solving. All those things cannot come in. And there are very traditional frameworks. There is a lot of technology teams, because these products are all end of the day powered by in-house technologies built in our team itself. So all these technology framework teams did not have kind of a big use case with the design thinking, because end of the day again it required them the actual PhDs to come in, someone who is actually a statistical expert or a mathematical expert or expert in big data, to think out of the box, and suddenly he is connecting something and he is doing something, and the connection with the design thinking was not that very high with these technology teams and the framework teams. So it was higher in the application teams, and in the application teams also your customers should also have a buy-in for it. If they are not open and if they are saying this is our problem, you build for it, there are some customers who are also very powerful. To all companies you would have the same. SAP also has, your companies would also be having. If your customer is not someone whom you can actually kind of say we can go over and see what really is the problem, if he is not in a kind of that mindset to take, then you would also not be able to do DT around. Yeah, so yeah, every phase has its this thing, and synthesis is most important is what I would say. Yeah, other questions that we had, right? So yeah, the one primary difference with B2B is that in B2C you have a luxury of users. You are able to speak to easily 50, 100, 150 users. You are able to run when we were doing our product labs, for example, it's very easy to reach a 200 people feedback survey and you get some insight. And then you design something very easy to validate with 10, 15, 20 customers, right? So that's that kind of luxury you do not have with B2B space. Typically, what we start with is a product will have one co-innovation customer. If you are lucky, you will get 3 co-innovation customers who is giving you the space to come and explore.
What is the customer for?
Co-innovation customers. So those who will work together with us, who will also give us the space to, who will not directly define the problem, but would allow to define the problem together by working with them. So now for the current product that I am doing, so we have about 6 customers, and one of them is the actual co-innovation mode, very heavily engaged, and the other 5 are like, another 2 is like, we can call them if there is something, they can do validation and stuff like that. And the another 3-4 customers are most like info customers. We can send them info, if they like they will get back, else they will not get back, right? So that's the kind of setup around. So any new products that we are starting, the customer base will be very, very small. And for the very established products, you will have thousands of customers, and still you will not be able to reach out to all of them. All of them are very big businesses by themselves. They don't care about what new products you are doing. They will generally say that, when you have next version, come and pitch your next version to us. If it sounds interesting, we will buy, right? At max, what you can do is you can have 1-2 days of 1 or 2 users from them interacting with you and trying to define. So the number of interactions in B2B space is very, very restricted compared to your B2C space. So one thing that SAP tries to use as a methodology to mitigate is that SAP is also called as event running machine. Right? So we have a lot of events happening all through the year in different parts of the world. And there is something also called as the user groups, the SAP user groups. If you just Google for SAP user group. So
they had a meeting.
yes. So in India, it's still trying to establish is the Indus. It's called Indus, Indian user group. Mukesh is leading Indus, and you have in Germany we have DSAC, the German user group, and the American user group. These two are the most powerful user group. These user groups, it's a very interesting model. These are companies. So let's say in Germany, if there is 100 companies using SAP as a product, now the representatives from these 100 companies come together and form an association. Right, so it's not SAP, it's not the companies itself, it's the customer representatives forming an association, and it is registered as a company, and it is a for-profit company. They run events and they make money. It's a separate entity. The user groups of SAPs are companies which makes money. They run and their primary thing is they get all the customers together, speak to them, get the insights. And now you have 100 people saying something, and now you go back to SAP saying, by the way, this is what we need in your redefined CRM strategy. This is what we see the industry is going towards. We see your roadmap is going in this direction, but we want it to be changed because this is backed by Indus, which has 500 members, and they are saying you have to go in this way. Then the company has no other way, they can go in this way. DSAC, DSAG. DSAG. Yeah. So those kind of groups helps us to kind of mitigate this issue of how many customers we are interacting with, and it's a different problem to sort out in B2B area. Every company deals with it differently. This is SAP's way of dealing. It's a user group concept, yeah. Okay, yes. Yeah. So it struggled to come into cloud. So the first cloud product of SAP, that's also where I started my career as well. So it's called By Design. If you Google for SAP By Design, it's called, it's the SAP's first cloud ERP. It started as a secret project. You need to have access to enter into this building, and then this was the first time that the cloud was emerging, and then they were trying to keep it as a very secretive project, right? And then it was eventually launched, and it was not a hit. So now it has about 2,000 customers or so, but it struggled to come into that point in time. So that's how it started. But now any new product that SAP is building is all in cloud. So there's no on-premise new product stuff happening. So there is this traditional ERP, which we call as the S4 HANA now. So it comes with the DB stack, the simplified HANA with the application layer. So that is continuing on-premise also and cloud also. But all the other new products are cloud. So either it comes as a cloud application or it comes as a cloud microservice, which you can plug in. And what you used to see SAP like 10 years before and now, it's a lot of difference, which is it's OpenStack within our development also. And all the services interact with all other partners and the competitor applications also. Our microservices are already even can be plugged and played into competitor services also. So it's not a closed system anymore. So that's another thing that most of the enterprise companies have to learn at a point, that no one can be monolithic. No one can say, I am the leader in this area, I will define whatever I want to define. No one can do that. Everyone have to come hand in hand and work together, and open innovation is something everyone have to follow. It's kind of as in every enterprise company is eventually going also into the some or the other areas they have opened up. So there's also another site called Open SAP. If you go there, there's plenty of materials that is available for free for you to learn. It includes design thinking kind of methodologies also. and also on the technology stack also. Very generic Python courses are also available, and SAP specific S4HANA courses are also available. Open SAP. Sorry? Yes. 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 Right. Right.
How that particular thing has
So there's the whole transition to cloud is not just only even the technology and the architecture, even the whole mindset and the culture within the company had to change. So every leader were given multiple different trainings to make them also think think differently from how they used to think, and even also for the employees to go through a set of agile training and all the other cloud mindset training and every other this thing. There was a point in time that everyone had to upskill themselves to come into the cloud world. Lot of our developers know only ABAP, and now suddenly they have to start to do in Java, for example. So there were wide open Java and OpenStack courses, Python and R and few other languages. So it's like courses running on every corner, every branch of SAP to get the employees upskilled over there, to make them also upskilled in terms of the technology skills as well as on the soft skills. So it's over a period of moving into the kind of cloud era. And then it's also not only the same company which used to build the on-premise software can come in here. That's where also the cloud companies have to be acquired. One of them is SuccessFactors, and then Ariba, if you know the business networks, all the business can be connected together kind of a concept. And then Concur, if any of your company is using Concur, yeah, so that's also acquired. So many of the cloud companies have been also acquired to become. And to your question of the cloud presence, at least as per the official number of users, SAP is now number one in terms of number of cloud user subscription across all IT companies in this thing. Because of these acquisitions also to some extent. There were some major players in cloud who were acquired by the company. Sorry? So the existing products are fairly what we call as the ERPs, right? So that is now moving on to S4HANA, the new stack. And then for S4HANA, there is an alternate offering of S4HANA Cloud. And eventually there is a way given also for customers who are using S4HANA to move into S4HANA Cloud. But the company is not forcing it. It's also what they are saying or what they are seeing is that it is not going to become cloud or nothing. There are going to still be some use cases for some big companies, for some defense use cases. Lot of defense companies uses SAP. Like US majority of defense systems are running in SAP also, for example. So they are never going to have, at least in the near future, next 5 to 10 years into cloud, right? So there are use cases where it has to be on-premise also.
How is the problem of data security has been addressed when they started getting the existing customer onto the cloud, or getting the new customers or the enterprise customers, because they normally have the notion that the data should not leave the device. So that's how that thing has been integrated.
So getting the existing customers was definitely a challenge, and specifically SAP having this very strong presence in Europe, and Europe being always very strict about the data. It's a very tricky combination to even to use our loyal customer base who are always like, any competition company comes, they will say if SAP is there, buy their software. That's the kind of thing within Europe, kind of, right? So in Germany, it's like almost taken. Any company you go, there will be SAP customers. So that was very tricky for making that move, and it is still very hard. Some of the companies have made movement over a period of time, seeing the changes around also. They had been very slow to see the change around in the market. They had to come into cloud, and they are slowly moving onto the cloud. Yeah, but primarily it was the wave was started with the US customer base of SAP. So they were the first ones to come into cloud. Early adopter is.
How is your daily schedule in terms of product management? And of course, company which is very good.
Yes.
Me coming from Vegas, what I have observed commonly is that most of the product managers that I know of, still they are very inward centric. So like, what if they are working a lot with external audience customers, to the internal people it does not come very clear and very apparent. So now for obviously SAP is way too bigger, but in terms of the responsibilities, what is that you need to do most in your day?
Okay, so even within SAP, it's like many products are like managing in their own kind of, with their own leaders, and they have a setup, well established setup in place, right? So what happens is there's multiple different options that we have around the product roles, what we have as a product role. So some departments have product managers, some departments do not even have a term called product manager at all, right? So all the product development teams have product owner. That was because of Agile and Scrum coming into picture. Every team need to have a product owner who is receiving the roadmap and the high level backlog, and he is breaking that down into the development task. He is not the product manager. He is the inbound product management specialist, as you could call, as a product owner. This is there in every development team because of Agile in picture. But then how the outbound product management is handled varies heavily in different departments. There are industry POs in some setup. So industry POs are the ones who are well established in one industry. They know retail in and out, for example. They connect only with retail. They go for all retail events. They get the things what is happening in there. They are kind of retail experts. They will translate their vision into what kind of products it should translate to, and which is then becoming a high level backlog broken down by the product owners. So there are these kind of setup. And then domain experts, who are called in our company as industry product owners. And there are industry business units itself who does this kind of task as well. And then we have APO, CPO setup in some of the products. So there will be like, so there is one product in supply chain which has about 15 teams of 10 in India, and another 10 teams of 10 in Germany, another 10 in different locations. So in each location you will have a area product owner who's managing these 15 teams of 10 in India. They are reporting, the product owners are reporting to one area product owner. And eventually the 4-5 area product owners of the same product will report to one chief product owner. So the CPO is not, in most companies, CPO is like the whole chief product officer, right? So here it's more a chief product owner for a one product. They are the head for that product, but it's one of the product in multiple product offering that is there. So that's another setup. So there are teams which has product managers, which again do the very similar role of the industry product owners. So we have different titles, but eventually any company for that matter, if you translate the whole product role, it would roughly come into us inbound product management and outbound product management. These are fairly two good areas to break it down to. And one need not be an expert in both these areas if you are looking at enterprise companies, because in smaller companies and in B2C companies these are always together. I'm not talking about that area. If you're talking about fairly complex B2B products, then choose your area where you want to operate, whether you want to go into inbound or outbound product management. So I started with inbound product management. I recently moved on to outbound product management.
That also you specifically pick the domain of.
Yes. Yeah.
Are you saying that there is a clear division and the inbound product manager can or should never speak directly with the customer in this case?
No, in inbound, the product owner also speaks to customer, but at this time, what he is speaking to is for his backlog, for something which is very defined. But whereas when the outbound product management colleague is speaking, there is nothing at this point in time. So when I started in my product, for example, you have 2 slides, and that is all that you have about for the product. Right now, the same product is now I have 2 product owners within the team, 2 teams of 10 developing. We are about roughly 24 people developing the product that I have. Now the product owners have the fairly defined requirements, and for their requirements, they will directly contact that customer who has already agreed. They will directly call and speak to them.
So yeah. What I'm saying, the product manager and product owner, whether it's like inbound or outbound, is the same thing.
It's not the same. So in outbound, primarily you have your role in 2 places, which is when you are defining the product, when you are defining the next release, when you are taking it to go to market, when you are doing pricing, when you are going for release decision, and then when you want a new team. So in our case, for example, we have to pitch to the product team to get a team added. So you always start with 1 team of 10. Now you go and pitch next year to get 2nd team of 10. Then you get 3rd team of 10. So over a period of time the team grows. So this pitch you have to do. So you are getting resource. You are generating the interest with the customers. You are defining the release. You are doing the roadmap. Then you are in outbound. Whereas in inbound, your scope is your team of 10. There are 10 people with you, which includes right from the, exactly. And for your team of 10, the high level scope is already assigned, and all your responsibility is to deliver in the defined time, the given scope to you.
So inbound product manager will have a PO and a Scrum team.
In our setup.
Inbound product manager will have an inbound product owner, right?
There is no inbound product manager. I told in the product management concept, you can roughly split it as inbound product management and outbound product management. Different company handles this differently. In our case, inbound product management is done by product owner inside a Scrum team, and outbound product management is done by either an industry PO or a product manager.
So there is no concept of inbound product manager?
No. Yeah. There could be in some companies. Your company has inbound product. Very few, I guess. Not many. There used to be many. Now it's fairly reduced. Yeah. So
you started your career directly in the product management, or it was something else?
I started with development actually.
That's that.
Development to architecture to project management, product owner and product manager.
Again, coming to the inbound thing, like if it is a particular feature or a function, then inbound product owner what is. If it's a bigger release, to take care of multiple things through the daily. So then it will be a broader scope. You have to work with multiple outbound product managers,
You mean one inbound product manager working with multiple? No, the mapping is generally, at least in our case, it's like You have one industry product owner or one product manager having multiple POs, 2, 3, or depending on the size of the product. So this person is generating the interest and getting the high level backlog and giving it to the product owners, and the product owners are building it. Some companies also have technical product manager, right? I think many companies have also technical product manager, which I think is mostly to do with inbound product management. Yeah. Asin is not expected to code, but you should be able to know, yeah, you are able to give a technical requirement for your developers. So how many of you are already onto the product roles? Fair bit of you are already in, right? So, and how many of you want to come into product role? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. As in, yeah, there are also other companies who are already there, right? So in my case also, when I started, I was already there in the product role. I just wanted to get the more from the outbound product management angle is one part I wanted to learn. And the other part is the B2C part. So I felt that I'm going very deeply into the B2B area. I wanted to also see how the B2C world looks, and this kind of helped me to do many things around B2C product development.
How much of data science and all of these is required in product?
Depending on your company's strategies. In our case right now, for example, anyone who's not knowing machine learning is very low rated. Irrespective of whether you are a developer, product.
Data science.
Yes. You should know the basics of data science if you are a product, any product role. If you are into architecture, you should know the machine learning architecture, how algorithms can work. This has now become kind of an add-on skill for any role, irrespective of any role you are into, because the company's strategy is also defined in a way. The future is going to be in machine learning, artificial intelligence, and blockchain. So any product, wherever you see the use case, make it machine learning.
This is the IT industry, right?
Yes. Exactly. That's the first step towards that, and then they eventually take them to the. So that's the kind of era now. So. You need not even know the algorithm actually. If you know the basics of how the data science problems are typically approached and how it is helping in a use case, then you are able to write a use case in your, for example, if tomorrow your company asks that your same traditional product that you are working on for a fair bit of time now, they ask, now we need a use case for machine learning for the same product. That's what is happening for us now, right? So all these are products which are already there. Now how do you bring in a ML use case into the product, existing product? So for that, you should have an understanding of how the artificial intelligence, deep learning, machine learning things. Then you are able to write a use case around it. How many of you are already on to ML related products? Machine learning, deep learning? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Kind of most of the companies are now switching into that area. So.
Without learning all the analytics part or statistics part, people just how it works. That is what the people in the product.
Yeah. Yeah. Now there are other things also, fairly a lot of other things coming in. For example, there's quite a bit of research happening with computer vision. Digital biology is another area that a lot of money is invested on. Quantum computing, not just machine learning now. So now it's little more than machine learning. IBM is heavily investing onto this, mainly to do with the hardware space itself, and how you are able to, the speed at which you can solve the problem and the number of combinations you can make with the digital chips. Yeah. Any other final things? Google. Yeah, so to those who do not know that Google experience is that, yes. So this was like roughly a month back or so. Hatsar directly reached out to me. Like, you know, it happens with any other smaller companies. One or the other company, you would have got many requests in LinkedIn, right? So that is nothing special about it. So this was special for me because it was Google, and at a point in time I was so crazy that, you know, somehow I have to get into Google 2 years back or so. Before I get into the ML product in SAP, now I'm fairly settled with this itself. It's giving me a kind of a bigger role. So I wasn't looking for anything immediately. Khatsar reached out actually, and it was surprising that they just said that, you know, we found your profile very interesting. We would like to set up a call. We have product management opportunities here at Google Singapore, and we would like to speak to you. So that's how it started, and I had the first call. I actually even didn't prepare for the call. I just wanted to take and see how it. The next day, immediately they scheduled. I went on for the call. To my knowledge, I did fairly well, is my understanding. 1 hour of a call, whatever was asked, I tried to answer it with whatever best I could do. The only design challenge was actually, how would you design a digital camera for an elderly person? Right now the problem is fairly open. It's not elderly from which region is not given. Why digital camera? People are carrying mobile phone already, but that is already in the statement as digital camera. So you have to start to define. So if you would do, what are the features? How would you design and how would you launch? So the whole cycle of how would you go about is what they asked. So that took about 15-20 minutes of explaining that itself.
So they give the solution from design thinking point of view, that you go and talk to like that.
Not more from DT point of view, as in the whole product management aspect. So I added my own assumptions. I told, for this specific group of elderly who has this kind of habits, these are the features that should be expected. And one feature that I highlighted was that, you know, for these are elderly people, you know, typically if they are going for a temple trip or something, that they organize as a group and they go and they come back. On the night, when they come back, it should be possible that they just keep the camera next to their bed or on the table and press the play button. It projects onto the wall which is on front of them, where it shows the nicely clicked pictures only, filtered pictures, because it's a digital camera. End of the day, you will have multiple pictures. If there is a way to quickly identify the good clicks and show only them as a kind of a slideshow, you know, assuming that they will not be very comfortable with the digital display, hold the camera and scroll through it. Instead, you just play it and make them recall the memories before they go for bed. They kind of, you know, cherish their travel moments, is what I told. Which she liked also actually. She said it's very nice. But yeah, I mean, this is how the call went, and immediately after the call, she got back asking for the resume to be shared, and she also mentioned in that, you know, if this is cleared, the resume will be shared with multiple hiring managers, and another 6 rounds of interviews will be there. And they got back that, you know, we went through your profile, it's currently not matching to the requirement what we have. So that was surprising because they reached out to me.
What made them to
No reasons given. I was surprised. No, guys, you came in, you asked.
your Google search.
Exactly. Something they have done. I was exactly having the same thing. You know, did they went to my Google search or Gmail to see what I'm doing? you know, because they reached out to me, they scheduled the call, and then it was solved. It didn't go further, right? So
Were there other questions apart from digital camera for elders?
most of the others were very traditional. How would you, you know, approach the design problems, define your role, how is your product defined, the structure of your product in the org, those kind of things.
So as you are also a developer, any coding questions? Because
I think one of that 6 rounds will also have. One thing I know is that they have removed the brain teasers and the puzzles, if you know already. So they have removed that. It's also listed in the Google interview site itself, which says that we have found that there is